I was 12 when I first called him dad. I was 16 when he looked me in the eyes and told me I was worthless. This is how I proved him wrong. Welcome to the last lesson. If this is your first time here, subscribe for more real stories about healing, growth, and finding strength you didn't know you had. Let's begin. I remember the exact moment I decided to trust him. It was a Saturday morning in June, 3 months after he'd moved into our small two-bedroom apartment. The kind of morning where sunlight filters through cheap curtains and makes even worn-out furniture look softer, kinder. I was sitting at our kitchen table, struggling with math homework, fractions, I think, and I was crying. Not loud, ugly crying. Just silent tears of frustration, because I'd been trying to solve the same problem for 20 minutes and nothing made sense. Mom was at work. She was always at work back then, pulling double shifts at the hospital just to keep our heads above water. And I was alone, or I thought I was. Hey, kiddo, what's wrong? I looked up and there he was, David, tall, with kind eyes and this way of standing in a doorway like he belonged there. Like he'd always been part of our story. I quickly wiped my face with the back of my hand, embarrassed. Nothing. Just stupid homework. He didn't laugh. He didn't tell me to figure it out myself, or that math would be easier if I just tried harder. He pulled out the chair next to me, sat down, and said, "Show me." For the next hour, he walked me through every single problem. He was patient in a way I'd never experienced before. When I got something wrong, he didn't sigh or roll his eyes. He just smiled and said, "Close. Try it this way." And when I finally got it right, he high-fived me like I'd just won an Olympic medal. That was the moment. That was when I decided he was safe. You have to understand, I hadn't had a father figure since I was 4. My biological dad left before I could even form real memories of him. Just a blurry face in a few photographs Mom kept hidden in a drawer. For 8 years, it had been just me and her against the world. And we were fine. We were surviving. But surviving isn't the same as living. And when David came into our lives, it felt like we could finally breathe. Mom met him at a hospital fundraiser. She came home that night glowing in a way I hadn't seen since. I don't even know. Maybe ever. She talked about him for weeks before she introduced us. This kind, funny, successful man who made her laugh, who listened when she spoke, who didn't see her as just a single mom stretched too thin. Their first date turned into a second into a third. And before I knew it, he was coming over for dinner, helping Mom with groceries, showing up at my school events. I was cautious at first, polite but distant. I'd seen enough Lifetime movies to know that not every man who smiled at you was good. But David, he didn't rush me. He didn't try to force some instant father-daughter bond. He just showed up, consistently, kindly. He taught me to ride a bike when I was 12, embarrassingly late, I know, but we'd never had the money for one before. He bought me a used purple mountain bike from a garage sale, spent an entire Sunday afternoon running beside me in the park, holding the seat steady while I wobbled and shrieked and eventually found my balance. "You're doing it," he shouted, and when I looked back, he wasn't holding on anymore. I was riding alone, and he was beaming like I'd just done something extraordinary. I fell, of course, scraped my knee pretty badly, but he was right there with Band-Aids and terrible jokes that made me laugh through the stinging pain. That night, at dinner, with my knee wrapped in gauze and my purple bike leaning against our apartment wall, I looked at him and said it. "Thanks, Dad." It just slipped out, natural as breathing. The table went quiet. Mom's fork paused halfway to her mouth. David looked at me with this expression I couldn't quite read. Surprise, maybe, or something softer. Something that looked almost like relief. Then he smiled. That warm, crinkly-eyed smile that made you feel like everything was going to be okay. "Anytime, sweetheart." Mom cried happy tears that night. I heard her on the phone with her sister, whispering about how we finally felt like a real family. And we did. For a while, we really did. David moved in officially when I was 12 and a half. Suddenly, our tiny apartment felt fuller, but not cramped. He brought bookshelves and laughter and this sense of stability we'd been missing. He made pancakes on Sunday mornings. He helped me study for tests. He showed up to my 7th grade talent show where I sang terribly off-key, and he clapped the loudest. He had this way of making you feel seen. Like whatever you were doing mattered. Like you mattered. But looking back now, with the clarity that only distance and pain can bring, I can see the things I missed. The small cracks in the foundation that I mistook for shadows. Like the way he'd compliment me, but always with a comparison attached. You did great on that test, not as high as the Kim girl in your class, but still pretty good for you. Or how he'd praise my drawings, but then casually mention that art wasn't really a practical career path, and I should focus on something more realistic. The jokes that felt a little too sharp. The times his eyes would go cold when I got excited about something he didn't deem important. The way he'd correct me in front of other people, making it sound helpful but leaving me feeling small. I told myself it was just his personality, that he was practical, realistic, trying to prepare me for the real world. That this was what fathers did. They pushed you, challenged you, kept you grounded. I told myself he loved me, and maybe in his own broken way he did. But love isn't supposed to make you doubt yourself. Love isn't supposed to come with conditions you can never quite meet. Love isn't supposed to feel like walking on eggshells in your own home, never quite sure which version of him you'll get. I didn't know that then. I was 13, 14, 15, just a girl trying to make her father proud, trying to earn the warmth he'd shown me that first year, wondering what I'd done wrong when his smiles came less frequently, when his patience wore thinner, when his criticisms grew sharper. I kept trying harder, kept believing that if I just improved enough, achieved enough, became enough, things would go back to how they were. Back to bike rides and pancakes and feeling safe. I was still trying on the day everything shattered. But that's a story for the next chapter. For now, just know this. I believed in him completely. I trusted him with my whole heart. I called him Dad and meant it with every fiber of my being. And that's exactly what made what came next hurt so much more than I ever thought possible. There's a specific kind of pain that comes from someone you love looking at your dreams and laughing. I felt it at 16, and it changed everything I thought I knew. I need you to understand something about dreams. When you're 16 and you discover the thing that makes your soul catch fire, it feels like finding a piece of yourself you didn't know was missing. It feels sacred, fragile. Like if you hold it too tightly, it might shatter, but if you don't protect it carefully enough, the world might take it away. That's how I felt about storytelling. It started innocently enough. My English teacher, Mrs. Patterson, assigned us a personal essay about a moment that changed us. Most kids groaned and threw together something generic the night before it was due. But I spent 2 weeks on mine. I wrote about the year Mom got sick. Nothing serious, just a bad flu that knocked her out for a week. And how scared I'd been. How I'd realized for the first time that the people we love aren't permanent, that life is more fragile than we pretend it is. I poured everything into those pages. Every fear, every hope, every raw feeling I'd been carrying. When Mrs. Patterson handed back our essays, mine had an A+ at the top and a note in red ink. You have a gift. Don't waste it. I read that note 100 times. 1,000 times. I carried that essay in my backpack for months until the paper went soft at the edges. That's when I discovered YouTube. I'd been watching videos for years. Obviously, makeup tutorials, music covers, vlogs. But I'd never considered making my own until I stumbled across this girl, maybe 19, sitting in her bedroom talking about her anxiety. Nothing fancy. No special effects or expensive equipment. Just her, a camera, and brutal honesty. She had 3 million subscribers. The comments were flooded with people saying she'd saved them. That hearing someone speak their secret pain out loud had made them feel less alone. And I thought I could do that. Not for fame. Not for money, but because I had stories too. Because maybe my words could matter to someone the way hers mattered to me. I started planning my first video immediately. I wrote scripts, practiced in the mirror, saved up 3 months of babysitting money to buy a cheap ring light and a used microphone. I was terrified and exhilarated and so hopeful. I decided to tell my family at dinner. It was a Tuesday night in October. Mom had made spaghetti, David's favorite. He was in a good mood, laughing at something on his phone, and I thought, this is the perfect time. This is when he'll see how serious I am, how much this means to me. We were halfway through the meal when I said it. So, I've been thinking a lot about my future. My voice was steadier than I felt. About what I want to do after high school. Mom looked up, interested. Oh, what are you thinking, honey? I took a breath. I want to be a content creator, a storyteller. I want to make videos about real experiences, real emotions, help people feel less alone. I've already started planning my first. David's laugh cut through the air like a knife. Not a chuckle, not a polite dismissal. A full, loud, mocking laugh that made my mom's fork freeze halfway to her mouth. I'm sorry, he said, still laughing, wiping his eyes. You want to be a what? A YouTuber. He said the word like it was a disease. My face burned. A content creator. It's a legitimate career. People make. Sweetheart. He leaned back in his chair, arms crossed, that condescending smile I'd started seeing more often. That's not a career. That's a hobby for people who are too scared to get real jobs. You think you're special enough to stand out among millions of other kids with cameras? You think people are going to care what you have to say? Each word landed like a physical blow. David, Mom said softly and certainly. Maybe we should. No, Sarah. Someone needs to be realistic with her. He turned back to me and his eyes were cold. So cold. You're a smart girl. Smart enough to know that dreams don't pay bills. That channel idea, you'll get maybe 50 views if you're lucky, your friends, and some bots. You'll waste months, maybe years, chasing something that will never happen while your grades slip and your real opportunities pass you by. My throat was tight. My eyes were burning. But I wasn't going to cry. Not in front of him. You don't know that, I whispered. I know reality. I know that you're not talented enough, not interesting enough, not special enough to make it in a field that competitive. And you know what? That's okay. Most people aren't special. Most people need to accept their limitations and find stable, practical paths. The word limitations echoed in my skull. I have a gift, I said, my voice shaking now. My teacher said. Your teacher? He actually rolled his eyes. Your teacher gets paid whether you succeed or fail. She doesn't have to live with the consequences of filling your head with fantasies. I do. Your mother does. He leaned forward, elbows on the table, voice dropping to something almost gentle, almost worse than the mockery. Listen to me. I care about you. That's why I'm being honest. You want to know what's going to happen if you chase this? You'll fail. You'll come crawling back, desperate, having wasted your best years on a pipe dream. And you'll resent everyone who didn't stop you, everyone who let you believe you were more than you are. Something inside me cracked. Not broke. Not yet. But cracked. I'm going to prove you wrong, I said quietly. He smiled. No, you won't. Because you need me. You need this roof, this food, this stability. Without it, you're nothing. Without me providing for you, you'd be lost. I looked at my mom, desperate, begging her silently to say something. Anything. She wouldn't meet my eyes. Just think practically, baby, she whispered. Maybe nursing school? Or teaching. Something stable. And that's when I felt it. The full weight of being completely alone in a room full of people who were supposed to love me. I didn't finish my dinner. I went to my room, locked the door, and for the first time in years, I let myself cry the ugly, heaving kind of crying that comes from somewhere deep and primal. But somewhere between the tears and the rage, something else grew. Determination. I filmed my first video that night. Sitting on my bedroom floor, eyes still puffy, voice still shaky. I talked about dreams and doubt and the people who tell you you're not enough. I didn't mention David by name, but every word was for him. My hands trembled so badly I had to restart 4 times. But I finished it. And at 2 a.m., half delirious with exhaustion and defiance, I hit upload. The reality of chasing dreams when nobody believes in you. 37 minutes after I posted it, I had my first comment from a stranger. I needed this. Thank you. 1 week later, I had 200 subscribers. 1 month later, 3,000. David noticed. I came home from school one day to find my bedroom door open. I always kept it locked and my laptop on my bed, open to a blank screen. My editing software was gone, uninstalled. Every draft, every script, Every thumbnail I'd been working on, deleted. He was standing in the hallway when I came out, holding my laptop charger. "You're done with that nonsense," he said calmly. "I'm doing you a favor, saving you from embarrassing yourself further." I stared at him, really looked at him, and for the first time, I saw him clearly. This man didn't love me. He loved controlling me. "You can delete my software," I said, voice steady despite my shaking hands. "You can take my equipment, but you can't take my voice." He stepped closer. Too close. "You think you're special? You think 3,000 pity subscribers means anything? You're pathetic. You'll fail. And when you do, don't come crying to me." I didn't respond. I just walked past him, grabbed my backpack, and left. I went to the library and used their computers. I stayed until closing, rebuilding everything he'd destroyed. That night, I made a promise to myself I would succeed. Not because I needed to prove him wrong anymore, but because I needed to prove to myself that his words weren't true. I didn't know then that he was watching my subscriber count, that every milestone I hit made him smaller inside, that my success would become the thing he couldn't escape. But I was about to find out. They say success is the best revenge. I never believed that until the day I appeared on national television and saw his face in the background, frozen, pale, and finally silent. I moved out 3 days after my 18th birthday. Not dramatically, not with slammed doors or shouted declarations. I just quietly packed my life into 2 suitcases and a backpack while David was at work and Mom was pretending not to notice. "You don't have to do this," she said from my doorway, arms wrapped around herself like she was cold. I zipped up the second suitcase. "Yeah, Mom, I do. Where will you even go?" "I have a plan." I didn't. Not really. Just a friend's couch, $300 in savings, and a channel with 47,000 subscribers that had somehow become my lifeline. She was crying now. Silent tears that made me angrier than her silence at that dinner table 2 years ago. "He loves you," she whispered. He doesn't know how to show it." I looked at her then, really looked at her, and I saw someone who'd chosen her own peace over her daughter's pain. Someone who'd heard him call me worthless and said nothing. Someone who loved me, maybe, but not enough. "If that's what love looks like," I said quietly, "I don't want it." I left before David came home. I couldn't stomach another lecture about how I was throwing my life away. Making a huge mistake would come crawling back when reality hit. Reality did hit, just not the way he predicted. Those first 6 months were brutal. I worked 3 jobs, morning shift at a coffee shop, afternoons at a call center, nights cleaning office buildings. I edited videos on my phone during bus rides, filmed content at 2 a.m. in my friend's tiny apartment bathroom because it had the best lighting and she was asleep. Some weeks I chose between buying groceries or paying for internet. The internet always won. My body was exhausted. My eyes had permanent dark circles. I lived on instant ramen and gas station coffee and the kind of determination that only comes from having something to prove. But my channel grew. 50,000 subscribers became 75,000, then 100,000, then 200,000. I wasn't making miracle money yet, but I was making enough to rent a studio apartment. Nothing fancy, just 400 square feet with a window that actually opened and a door that locked. It was mine. Every inch of it was mine, and nobody could take it from me. I didn't talk to David, barely talked to Mom, though she'd text sometimes. Surface level things. "Hope you're okay. Thinking of you. Never I'm sorry. Never you were right." I told myself I didn't care. I told myself I'd moved on. But late at night, when I couldn't sleep, his words still echoed. "You're not special. You're not talented. You'll fail." I used those words like kindling. Every time I felt like giving up, I heard his voice, and I worked harder. The turning point came when I was 20. I'd posted a video called "How I Survived a Toxic Home and Built a Life I'm Proud of." It wasn't specifically about David. I'd learned to tell my story without exposing everyone in it, but it was raw, honest, real. It went viral. 2 million views in the first week. 5 million by the end of the month. My phone exploded with notifications. Brand deals, sponsorship offers, interview requests from podcasts and blogs and actual news outlets. And then the email that changed everything. Good Morning America would like to invite you to share your story on our show. I read it 7 times before it felt real. Good Morning America. National television. Millions of viewers. I called my friend Jasmine, the one who'd let me sleep on her couch, and screamed into the phone. Oh my God, she kept saying. Oh my God. He's going to see this. You know he's going to see this, right? I did know. And some dark, vindictive part of me was glad. The interview was scheduled for a Thursday morning in May. I flew to New York 2 days early, stayed in a hotel that had room service and pillows that felt like clouds. The production team prepped me, walked me through questions, made sure I was comfortable. I wasn't comfortable. I was terrified, but I was ready. The morning of the interview, I sat in the makeup chair watching them transform my tired face into something camera-ready. I wore a blue dress I'd bought specifically for this, professional but still me. My hands wouldn't stop shaking. You're going to be amazing, the producer said, squeezing my shoulder. I wanted to believe her. They called my name. I walked onto that set, shook hands with the host, sat on that couch under those bright lights, and somehow, miraculously, I didn't fall apart. Tell us your story, the host said with genuine warmth. And I did. I talked about being a girl with dreams and a family that didn't believe in them. About choosing myself when nobody else would. About the nights I cried myself to sleep wondering if I'd made a terrible mistake. About the moment I realized that other people's limitations weren't mine to carry. I didn't name David. I didn't have to. What would you say to young people who are facing similar situations? The host asked. I looked directly into the camera. Directly into the homes of millions of people. Including, I knew his. I'd say that someone else's inability to see your worth doesn't define your value. That the people who try to make you small are usually fighting their own battles with inadequacy. And that success isn't about proving anyone wrong. It's about proving to yourself that you were right to believe. The interview aired to 4.3 million viewers. My phone crashed from notifications. My subscriber count jumped by 300,000 in 2 days. And then Mom video called me. She looked older, tired. She was standing in the kitchen, our old kitchen, and I could see someone moving in the background. I saw you on TV, she said. Pride and sadness mixed in her voice. You were incredible. Thanks, Mom. David saw it too. She glanced over her shoulder. He wanted me to tell you congratulations. Something cold settled in my chest. Put him on. She hesitated. Honey, I don't think. Put him on. The camera shifted, and there he was, David, the man who'd called me worthless, who'd deleted my dreams and told me I'd come crawling back. He looked smaller somehow, grayer, diminished. Hey, he said awkwardly. That was really something. Your interview. I said nothing. I always knew you had potential, he continued, and I actually laughed. A sharp, bitter sound. I mean, maybe I was hard on you, but I was just trying to prepare you for... Stop. He stopped. You don't get to rewrite history, I said quietly. You told me I was worthless. You said I'd fail. You destroyed my work and mocked my dreams and made me feel like I was nothing. I was trying to protect. You were trying to control me, because my success meant you couldn't keep me small anymore. And now, I smiled and it wasn't kind. Now I don't need your protection, your approval, or your presence in my life. You taught me exactly who I never want to become. So thank you for that. I ended the call. My hands were shaking, but this time from relief, from power, from finally saying the words I'd been carrying for years. That was 8 months ago. Today, I have 1.2 million subscribers. I've spoken at universities about resilience. I've written articles about overcoming toxic family dynamics. I get messages every day from people who say my story gave them permission to chase their own dreams. David hasn't contacted me since that call. I heard through Mom that he tells people he always supported my career, that he knew I'd make it. I don't correct the record. I don't need to, because here's what I learned. Revenge isn't something you plan. It's not something you chase. Real revenge is simply becoming so fully, completely yourself that the person who tried to break you becomes irrelevant to your story. He didn't break me. He revealed who I was capable of becoming when I stopped seeking his approval and started believing my own voice. And that voice, It's reached millions now. Sometimes karma doesn't need your help. It just needs time. If this story resonated with you, if you're fighting your own battle to be seen and heard and believed, hit that subscribe button. Join the Last Lesson family, because your story matters, your dreams matter, and you are so much more than anyone's limitations. I'll see you in the next video.